Hi, thank you so much for joining me for class today. Today's class is going to bring extra attention and focus on balancing. So we'll be balancing on our feet, we'll be balancing on our hands, and we will be starting today in Supta Baddha Konasana, so laying down on our backs, bringing the soles of our feet together, and bringing one hand to rest on the belly and one hand to rest on the chest. Take a deep inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top and then let it go through the mouth. Close the lips. Begin to inhale and exhale through the nose. Let's slowly move into our Ujjayi pranayama, our victorious breath. So with the lips sealed, let's begin to constrict the back of the throat. The breath becomes audible. Three more breaths. Stay connected to your Ujjayi breath as we begin to move our bodies. So taking the hands and supporting the knees as we draw the legs in toward the chest. Work toward pressing the tailbone flat to the floor. One more squeeze of the knees in toward the chest, toes, heels, ankles side by side. And then keeping a hold of the right knee, extend the left leg long on the mat. Interlace the fingers around the right knee. And then draw the knee to the right around the ribs and up toward the right shoulder. Flex all 10 toes back toward both knees. Draw the elbows in. Ground down through both hips and both shoulders. So try to avoid leaning off to one side. And then release that right leg long on the mat. Draw the left knee in toward the chest. Interlace the fingers around the knee and then take that knee around the ribs off to the left and up toward the left shoulder. Flex the toes back toward both knees and keep both hips and both shoulders grounded on the floor as we draw the elbows in and down toward the mat. Good. And then relax the grip on the left knee, draw the right knee into the chest, and let's take 3 rolls along the length of the spine. One more. And then just roll all the way through, coming into tabletop position. So finding those shoulders over the wrists and the hips over the knees, spreading the hands wide, tops of the feet flat to the floor. Let's begin to move the spine in cat-cow. So inhaling, dropping the belly down, reaching up through the crown of the head and the tailbone, and then rounding as we exhale, taking the gaze toward navel center, lifting and separating the shoulder blades. 2 more. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And inhale, tabletop position. So for our first balance today, we're gonna move into spinal balance. So we're gonna balance on the left hand and the right knee. We're gonna extend that right arm long and the left leg straight out behind. Work toward getting both hips level to the floor, and the toes of the left foot are pointing down toward the mat as the fingers of the right hand reach straight forward. So for our balancing today, we're going to hold the balances for at least 5 breaths, if not longer. So we've got about 3 more breaths here on this side. As we balance, keep the gaze steady. This will help us in our balancing poses. Last breath here, inhale. Exhale, release. And we'll take that on the other side. Extend the left arm forward and the right leg straight back behind us. The toes of the right foot are pointed down toward the mat, and the fingers of the left hand are reaching straight ahead. Find a steady gaze. Keep the head in line with the spine. We've got about 3 more breaths here. Listen to the Ujjayi breathing so that you can stay connected to a calm and smooth breath as much as possible. This will also aid us in our balancing. Last breath here on this side. And release back to tabletop position. We're going to take a child's pose just to stretch out our hips here. So separate the knees, bring the toes to touch, press the hips to the heels, walk the hands forward, release the forehead to the mat. Last breath here in extended child's pose. And then come all the way back up through tabletop position, all the way to downward facing dog. So bring the knees back in line with the hips, tuck the toes under, lift the hips high, press the heels down. And then in our first downward facing dog, feel free to find movement. So pedaling out the legs, possibly. You can wiggle out the hips, take them side to side, stretching through the ribs and shoulders. You can sink the knees to the floor. Whatever feels good, just to arrive in down dog and really stretch the body out nice and long. Just check in that the breath is still flowing and that you can hear your breathing. The head is nice and heavy, the neck is nice and long. Last full breath in downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale. All right, so right away we're going to take our down dog into a balance. So just walk your feet about a half a footstep forward. Bring your right foot toward the center and then lift that left leg high. Make sure that your hips are level, however, okay? We don't want to be hiking up the hip and the left toes are pointed down toward the floor. And then from here, you can look forward if you'd like, begin to lift that left hand off the mat. Okay, so really stabilize, opposite action here, lifting that left hand and left leg. And release the left hand, lifting the right hand. Keep that left leg lifted. One more breath. All right, and release. We'll take it on the other side. So take the left foot toward the center, lift the right foot off the mat. Right toes are facing down and our hips are level. Okay, and look forward, and we're going to lift that right hand off the mat. Ooh, this side's a little more challenging for me. Hold here, really working to gain stability in our downward facing dog and focus. Okay, now plant that right hand on the mat and lift the left arm off, or left hand off the mat. Hold here. Stay nice and strong and stable. And feel all the muscles in the arms, the legs, the hands, and the feet working really hard to stabilize this position. Okay, now release and then come back to a nice long downward facing dog. So walk the feet back and just enjoy the stability of having both feet and both hands on the mat right now. One more breath, inhale and exhale. So lift the right foot off the mat again. And this time we're going to step through the right foot between the hands, and then we're going to release the left knee to the floor and come into half splits pose. So begin to straighten through that right leg. Try to keep the hips in line with one another, and that usually means drawing the right hip back and the left hip forward. And then you can forward fold over the right leg and just increasing the stretch in the hamstring. Take one more full breath here. And come forward to low lunge, lifting that left knee off the floor. We're gonna take it into a twisting lunge. So left hand stays on the floor, lift that right arm up, maybe take the gaze and follow the hand. If we're feeling a little more unbalanced or unstable, just take the gaze down toward the floor. And release back to low lunge. Stepping onto the right foot, let's lift the left leg high for standing splits. And look back toward the left toes. Make sure that all the toes are pointing down. Usually that means spiraling the pinky toe down toward the mat. This will level out the hips. And release, forward fold. We're gonna go ahead and take our peace fingers, wrap them around the big toes, continuing to work toward some hamstring length. We're gonna start to draw the elbows off to the side and the crown of the head toward the floor. Take one more full breath here. Make sure that the shoulders are drawing back up into their sockets instead of hunching by the ears, and release. On the inhale, come up to a halfway lift monkey pose. And exhale, release, forward fold. And with the breath, 2 more times. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, forward fold. And last time, inhale, monkey. Exhale, forward fold. Plant the hands. Inhale, step back plank pose. And then right away, exhale, lower down onto the floor. Continuing to work breath to movement, we'll take 3 rolling cobras. So take the tops of the feet flat to the floor, elbows draw in, inhale. Peel the chest off the floor, lift through the crown of the head, exhale, roll it back down. And again, lift with the breath. So listen to your own breath, that ujjayi breathing, guiding us into a smooth and steady, hopefully nice and long inhale and exhale. Tuck the toes under and press up either tabletop or plank back to downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, left leg lifts. Exhale, step left foot between hands, and then place the right knee on the floor. For half splits pose, we'll begin to straighten through the left leg, and then we can forward fold over that left leg. Draw the left hip back, right hip forward, bringing 2 hips into one plane, and then take one more breath here. And come back to low lunge. I'm going to step onto that left foot, bring the right leg high for standing splits. Look back to the right toes. Make sure all 5 toes are pointing down toward the mat. Take one more inhale. And exhale, forward fold. Bring the right foot to meet the left and release. Inhale, monkey. Now pause and monkey. Exhale out your air. And then bring the arms parallel to the floor, right off to the sides, making a capital T. Take another breath, working a little bit here with some spinal strength. Keep the quads engaged and exhale. And then inhale, come all the way up, tall mountain. And exhale, hands to heart. All right, and just to connect to our groundedness through our feet, we're gonna take 3 breaths with our eyes closed. So find a nice strong mountain pose first, spreading the toes, engaging through the legs, drawing the shoulders down and back away from the ears. Close the eyes. 3 long Ujjayi breaths. Open the eyes, inhale, tall mountain. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, step back to plank pose and pause here in plank. Okay, so keep both hands grounded on the floor. Slight bend the elbows so we're not hyperextending. And then bring that right foot towards center and lift the left foot off the mat for 3, 2, 1. And switch it out. Bring left foot towards center. Lift that right foot off the mat for 3, 2, 1. Come back to plank pose. Separate the feet to hip distance apart. And this time lower through chaturanga. Optional, of course, if you want to go back to the floor and come through cobra instead of up dog. Always available. On the next inhale, lift the right leg high. Exhale, step through, preparing for warrior 1. Virabhadrasana 1, we plant that left heel to the floor and then rise up. Okay, so we can manually square the hips if that's helpful, taking the hands to the hips and drawing that right hip back, left hip forward. I'm gonna shorten my stance just a tad, and then make sure the shoulders are squared to the front. Lift the arms straight up overhead, and then lower the shoulders away from the ears. Take one more inhale here. And then as we exhale, we're gonna bring the hands, if possible, behind the back into reverse prayer. Okay, if that's not accessible, you can bring hands to clasp the wrists or the elbows. Okay? If neither of those are possible, you can just bring the hands to the hips. Okay, from here we're gonna straighten through that front leg. We're gonna start to hinge through from the hips, coming all the way forward. So challenging our balance a little bit here, looking back toward the back foot. Take another breath here. And then as we inhale, we're gonna sweep the arms up and lower back into that front knee. So we're in warrior 1. Exhale, release to the floor. Into low lunge. Step back plank pose, inhale, lower chaturanga, exhale. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And take that on the other side. So lift the left leg and step through for warrior 1. Plant that right heel to the floor. Rise up, reaching the arms up overhead. Again, we can manually square the hips to the front of the mat by taking the hands to the hips, taking that left hip back, right hip forward. Make sure the shoulders are squared to the front of the mat and the arms are straight up overhead. Adjust the stance as needed. You can take your feet more to a railroad position if you'd like, or you can shorten your stance if that assists us in getting hips and shoulders squared. And then hands behind the back. You can take reverse prayer, opposite hand to wrist, or opposite hand to opposite elbow. Straighten through that front leg, hinge at the hips, and release the head all the way down toward the mat, taking the gaze right back to the right foot. Stay nice and engaged through the legs. And if we do feel unbalanced, always feel free to take the hands down onto the mat to support our balance. And then take that, release the hands, come all the way back up to warrior one. So bend into that front leg, inhale, exhale, hands to the earth, low lunge. Inhale, plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale to downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, right leg high. And place that right foot between the hands for low lunge. Inhale, come all the way up to crescent lunge. And then we're gonna balance here in airplane pose, okay? Holding to start with for 5 breaths. So gain steadiness by focusing the gaze at an unmoving spot on the floor in front of you. Reach the fingertips back toward the back heel. 3 more breaths here. Last inhale. Exhale. And of course, if you fall out of it, just come right back to it. Okay, now stick with the balance. We're going to move mindfully into a modified 5-pointed star. So standing on that right foot, bring the left leg off to the side, reach both arms up at an angle, palms face out, and the left toes face forward, not up, but forward. 3 more breaths here. All right, now stick with it. Very slowly, with control, come back to airplane. So sweeping the arms and the legs back out behind us, squaring those hips to the floor. And then as we exhale, bring left foot to meet right and sit down into chair pose. Inhale, sweep the arms up. And then exhale, come into balanced chair. So lifting the heels off the floor, sweeping the arms back, hold here. All right, inhale, release the heels, lift the arms, and exhale, forward fold. Excellent job. So give the knees and the hips a little bit of a wiggle. This is definitely a challenging balancing sequence on one side. We'll, of course, even it out by doing the other side. All right, inhale, monkey. Exhale, forward fold. Now plant the hands, step back to plank pose. Okay, so we're gonna take one more point of contact off the mat here. So bring that right foot back towards center. Lift the left foot off the floor. You can bring the left hand a little bit closer to center, and then lift the right arm off the floor. And release back to plank. And then we'll do the other side on the other side. So chaturanga, optional. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, downward facing dog. Take a full breath here. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, lift the left leg high. Exhale, low lunge. Inhale, crescent lunge. And then moving right into our balancing series on the other side. Step onto the left foot, come into airplane pose. Lift the right foot off the floor. Level the hips. 5 toes of the right foot pointing toward the mat. And then reaching with the fingertips toward the heel. 3 more breaths. Okay, mindfully come up through modified 5-pointed star. So try to keep the right foot off the floor. Sweep it off to the side, sweep the arms up, palms face out, and right toes face forward. So you should be able to feel muscles in your hip and your glute working to lift that leg off the floor. 3 more breaths. Last inhale, exhale, airplane. And then inhale, chair pose, right foot meets left, arms sweep up. Exhale, balance chair, sweep the arms back. And then inhale, sweep the arms up. Keep the heels lifted. Exhale, sweep the arms back. A little movement here in our balancing. Inhale. Exhale, sweep them back. This time we lower the heels, inhale, chair. Exhale, forward fold. Give the hips a wiggle. And get ready for that balancing plank on the other side. A very, very challenging pose. So we have to stay connected to the breath. Keep the gaze nice and steady. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, fold. Plank pose. All right, this time we're going to take that left foot toward the center. Bring the right hand a little bit more towards center. Lift the right toes off the floor, right foot off the floor, and the left arm off the floor. Breathe. And exhale, release. Come back to your plank pose, inhale. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale. One more recovery breath. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale the right leg high. Exhale, low lunge. Inhale, crescent lunge. And finally, our first warrior 2. Exhale, release that back heel. Extend the arms long. Palms face down. We're only going to be here for one more breath. Inhale. Exhale. And inhale, reverse warrior. Moving into my favorite balancing posture, half moon pose, Ardha Chandrasana. So step onto that right foot, stack the shoulders, stack the hips. I think this is a well-loved pose because those hips are nice and open, shoulders are nice and open. You can really play with the gaze here, challenging the balance by moving the gaze from the floor to the hand. You immediately will notice how much your gaze matters in balancing. 2 more breaths. All right, just as we did in our last sequence, we're going to move mindfully, trying to keep that left foot off the floor. We'll bring that left foot all the way through to standing staff pose. Nice and slow, nice and steady. Reach the arms straight up overhead. Leg can be at 90, or you can straighten it if you want a little extra challenge on the quadricep there. All right, so go ahead and take the left hand, bring the peace fingers around the left big toe. If that's not accessible for you and you have a strap, feel free to put a strap around the left foot. You can stay right here if the hamstring's tight. You can begin to straighten through that left leg. Maybe it's not all the way straight today, maybe it's bent, but we're still, except for that little example there, we're still balanced. We're still balancing. So the emphasis is really here on the breath, the gaze, the focus. And just observe throughout this class what happens to the mind when it has to be so focused and concentrated. Just really get present in the body and the breath. And an option here to open the leg, extend the arm to the opposite side. Last breath. Come back through center and release to mountain pose. Once again, give the hips a little bit of a wiggle here. A lot of balancing on one leg. And inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, monkey pose. And then exhale, step or hop through chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. All right, let's take that series on the other side. Inhale the left leg high. Exhale, low lunge. Inhale, crescent lunge. Exhale, warrior 2 for 3 breaths. Get right into it. Steady the breath. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, reverse warrior. Preparing for Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. Step onto that left foot. See if you can get that right foot off the floor without dragging it. It's okay if you drag it a little bit, but kind of working in that direction, getting that control in the transition, not just the pose. So again, you can really experiment with your gaze and just observe the importance of the gaze in balancing. So when you start to move your gaze, you might feel a little bit of a wobble. That's okay. Last breath. So the transition is to staff pose. Take your time, take it slow, and just challenge yourself to keep that right foot off the floor as you move through. Little wobble, a lot of wobble. Extend the arms up. And then staff pose with the right leg. You can have it bent at 90 degrees, thigh parallel to the floor. If you want to challenge the quadricep, you can straighten the leg. And then bring that left hand to the hip. Right peace fingers are going to wrap around the right big toe. Oh, feeling a lot more wobbly on this side. You might have one side that's less or more wobbly than the other. So you can stay here, or you can extend the leg towards straight. It's okay if it doesn't go all the way straight. The focus is on the balance. So the gaze should be steady and unmoving. I personally am staring at a little leaf out in front of me and keeping my gaze right there on that leaf. And then option to open the leg to the side, extend the left arm to the left. And then come back through center, release mountain pose. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, step or float, chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. 2 more recovery breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale the right leg high. Exhale, low lunge. Inhale, crescent lunge. Exhale, full airplane. And then this transition is going to take us to tree. So again, challenge yourself and see if you can keep that left foot off the floor. Bring it either to the ankle, calf, or inner thigh. And we're going to bring the hands either to heart center, or we're going to extend them up toward the sky, anything that's comfortable for you. If you're really working on getting the balance and holding the balance, bring the hands to heart center. It's a little more stable. And we're going to hold tree for 10 breaths. So if we fall out of the pose, just come right back to it. And see if you can find that single pointed focus where nothing else exists except for this pose in this moment. I'm about halfway there now. Will be our last breath in tree on this side. Inhale. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. One more breath. Left leg lifts on the inhale. Exhale, low lunge, making our way to tree pose on the other side. Inhale, crescent, lunge. Exhale, airplane. Inhale, take it slow, tree pose. Bringing that right foot either to the ankle, the calf, or the inner thigh. Hands to heart center, or reaching up toward the sky. Just a silent hold here for 10 breaths, about 8 more. Inhale. Exhale, mountain pose. Inhale, tall mountain. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, monkey. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, up dog, and exhale, down dog. One more breath in down dog. Exhale, let it go. And release onto the mat. All right, so what would a balancing class be without an arm balance and an inversion? So I'm gonna just offer up a challenge today. You don't have to take this option, but we are going to take crow pose first for our arm balance, and we're gonna work on the transition from crow pose to headstand. And I'm not sure if I can do it. I don't think I've tried it in a long time, but we're gonna go for it together and just have a sense of playfulness and curiosity. And really, again, the focus here is on the transition in the balance and just that calm, steady mind and breath that helps us with our balance. So that's what we're working toward ultimately. So go ahead and prepare yourself for crow pose. We're going to take the hands to shoulder distance apart. And I personally like to bring my feet to touch and then bring my knees to the backs of my arms as high up as the armpits if you can. And then slowly tilt forward. Actually, I'm going to move back on my mat. I should have mentioned that. You have to have room for your head moving into headstand if you're going to take that option. So coming into crow pose first, just play around with it. We're going to hold it, if we can, for 5 breaths. Last breath. All right, so very slowly and mindfully, if you do not feel that you can do this carefully, please come down first before we come into headstand. Otherwise, lower the head to the floor. Whew, that's kind of a scary but fun transition. Okay, so we're preparing ourselves for tripod headstand. If you were in proper position for crow, you're already there for tripod headstand. So bringing the knees from the backs of the arms together and then pressing them up toward the sky or the ceiling and holding here. Last breath. And release. Oh, maybe you can release. I can't, so I can't show you. Back to crow. Bringing your knees back to the backs of your arms and lifting your head off the mat. I'll be working in the direction of that one someday. So if you did want to try tripod headstand and weren't familiar with that pose before class today, just give you a brief instruction on that pose. Otherwise, if you already took your headstand and are done, take a child's pose just to release the neck. So for a tripod headstand, we do want the hands positioned underneath the shoulders, and then just make a visual triangle and take your head right to the center above your hands. And then we just lift the hips up as if we're coming into a down dog, and then take those knees onto the backs of the arms, bring the feet together, and then a little core strength here. Bring the knees together, press it up, okay? It's a little brief instruction on tripod headstand if you want to try it. All right, so from child's pose, we'll all meet there. I like to take embryo pose personally. It's a nice release for the neck. You can just rest the arms alongside the body. Take another breath here. And release. All right, so we're gonna take one heart opener. We'll take camel pose today. If you'd like to choose a different heart opener, feel free to do that, of course. Otherwise, come up onto the shins, bring those knees to about hip distance apart, hands to low back. Begin by drawing the elbows back, pressing the hips forward, taking the gaze up. Maybe one hand at a time reaches back toward the heels. Last breath. All the way back up. Sit the hips to the heels, rest the hands on the lap. Another breath. And let's counter pose with rabbit. So bringing the hands to the heels, get as good a grip as we can. Then we're gonna bring the chin to the chest and roll ourselves forward. Bring the crown of the head to the floor. Gentle pressure on the crown of the head, not much. And see if we can keep the forehead connected to the knees and start to lift the hips. And slow release. All right, make your way back to downward facing dog. This is only in preparation for pigeon. So go ahead and step back. Maybe a quick little wiggle of the hips and legs. And then let's take that right leg high and make our way to half pigeon. Bring that right knee toward the right wrist, right toes toward the left wrist. Extend that leg straight out behind, top of the foot flat to the floor. Extend through the spine and release. Forehead to the mat for 5 breaths. Complete that exhale. Back up onto the hands. Tuck the left toes under and step back, down dog. Little wiggle, little shake. And let's switch sides. Left leg lifts. Left knee toward left wrist. Left toes toward right wrist. Extend that right leg back. And extend the spine long. Release forehead to the mat. Complete the exhale. Come back up onto the hands. Curl the right toes under. Step back, down dog. Go ahead and release to a seat. And make your way onto your back. And let's take a bridge pose, drawing the heels toward the hips, spreading the toes wide, hands alongside the body. Lift the hips up off the floor. Option for chest expansion. Interlacing the hands underneath the hips and then rolling onto the outer edges of the arms. And release. Draw the knees into the chest. Separate the knees and the feet and come into happy baby. Bring the knees to the chest and then release your feet to the floor at about mat distance apart. Bring your arms to goal post, palms face up, and then release both knees to the right, gaze to the left. For our supine twist, if you'd like to take another variation, feel free to. If you'd like to deepen into the twist a little bit, you can take the right foot on top of the left knee. Only if it feels good though. No stress or pressure on the back. Come back through center and release the knees to the left, gaze to the right. Come back towards center. One final squeeze. Both knees into the chest. And release Shavasana. Extend the legs long and wide. Extend the arms long and wide. Relax the fingers and relax the toes. Move around till the body is nice and comfortable. And take one final breath. So inhale. Exhale, let it go. Now just move back to the natural rhythm of the breath. No focus or energy needs to be put toward the breath. Just soft, slow. Relax the jaw, relax the forehead. And just soak up your practice here. Take a moment to observe the difference that you feel in your body, in your mind now, as opposed to how you felt in your body and your mind when you stepped onto your mat. And just observe the difference. I invite you and encourage you to stay in Shavasana as long as you have time for. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Today, as you go forward, may you have peace in your thoughts, peace in your words, and peace in your heart. Namaste.